In this video, we'll look at defining what a digital game is, different game genres, and we'll be looking at some game examples. Why are these important to consider when creating a game? Well, when thinking about what games to make and how to create them, you might feel that it's important for students to understand games. By understanding types of games, it may open up ideas and opportunities for the creation of new games and new ideas. Just like in how in English we'll look at examining different genres and text structures, games too can follow genres and have particular features and principles associated with those genres. A digital game, also known as a computer game or a video game, is an interactive program for one or more players that's meant to provide entertainment or some form of experience. It can be a form of competitive activity played according to rules which involve players doing something new and challenging in a particular environment. Digital games can be played on a number of different platforms, and these include personal computers or laptops, consoles, arcade machines, or mobile and handheld devices. Digital games can come in a variety of different genres. Game genres are used to categorize video games based on their gameplay rather than on visual or narrative differences. For example, a role-playing game is described as a role-playing game, regardless if it's set in a story about an ancient world or a sci-fi fantasy world. Some examples of game genres include simulations, massively multiplayer games, strategy games, platform games, and many more. In the additional resources of this lesson, we've put a link to a website with many more examples of different genres. We're going to go over some of these genres, however this isn't an extensive or comprehensive set, and some of the games that we've described can actually be fit in one or more categories. Let's have a look. Simulation games are often single-player games that emulate real-world situations, such as flying an aeroplane or a helicopter. The goal of these games is to make it as realistic as possible. These games are also used in learning contexts, for example in medicine, where learners practice developing a particular skill or confidence. Sandbox games give players a great deal of freedom to construct and create. These are sometimes open world games where the player has the freedom to roam an open world or even explore a map. Minecraft is an example of a sandbox game that involves building structures. It allows players to work on creating pretty much anything that their imagination allows using virtual blocks. Platform games are another example that involved an avatar or a character and the use of ledges and levels. The goal is to reach the end of a particular level, perhaps with the most points or without losing any life, or navigating through a platform map. In this example, we've got Super Mario, which is a very popular game. It takes the player on a role of Mario and involves various activities such as collecting coins, special bricks, mushrooms, and attacking enemies. Sports games, or sometimes called action games, require players to have good reflexes and participate in some challenging activity. These might be in a single-player or a two-player context. Sports games involve the players undertaking some kind of sporting activity by interacting with the electronic user interface. Sporting games vary widely and can involve golf, car racing, athletics, and many more. Nintendo Wii Sports is one new generation console of sporting games, along with Microsoft Xbox, Sony PlayStation. Wii Sports includes single or multiplayer sports like tennis and baseball. And what makes this actually unique is the way in which the player interacts with the user interface by using movement and motion. Strategy games or puzzle games emphasize problem solving. These types of games can often test a person's knowledge or their problem solving processes. There are different types of problem-solving games and puzzle games, such as crosswords, word searches, word games, and logic puzzles. These include games like chess, Tetris, memory games, and many more. Role-playing games, also known as RPGs, can focus on character development. In these games, the player controls the action of a main character, sometimes one that they've created themselves, or sometimes a predefined character. Players navigate their character through usually a well-defined world and through a story. Sometimes players can have choice over their actions of the character. An example of this genre is the Final Fantasy series. Multiplayer games involve more than one player in the same game environment at the same time. In the context of digital games, it can be a networked video game where players connect and play one another, or as a team, across the internet, or it might be an online board game, such as Monopoly. Some games feature an open world and are referred to as massively multiplayer open online games, where users can traverse different worlds or locations freely. Some examples of massively open online games include the popular World of Warcraft. Players in these games can select an avatar that represents them, and they work in teams to accomplish missions or complete quests. Let us now explore further some educational games. In this course, we're going to refer to digital educational games as educational games. An educational game is a game which is designed to teach humans about a specific skill or a subject. Nowadays, educational games or game-based learning is among a popular alternative to improve education through fun and inspiring activities. Some more recent developments include gamification, where players acquire badges or points to show achievements, and an example of this is through Khan Academy. In this multiplayer board game style genre for mathematics, learners are able to practice algebra by adding and subtracting fractions. Here's another example of a single player game based on the popular Who Wants to Be a Millionaire quiz, where learners test their mathematical knowledge by participating in a series of challenging questions. There are also a number of interactive games that are available on apps now, where players get to interact with keyboards, drum kits, and guitars. For language development, quizzes and puzzle games are very popular. For example, RoboBee is a game where a student will obtain language skills about synonyms, antonyms, and spellings by blossoming or wilting the garden by entering the correct text answers. There are also some more advanced tutorials based around gamification, such as the Duolingo app and website. In these activities, learners have a set of 10 questions they must answer in order to pass the level and move on to the next stage and receive a badge. In the mobile app version, they use 10 hearts that break if an answer is incorrect. In this example, the goal is to make it to the end where the egg hatches. If all chances have been used up, the player must play again to beat the level. One strategy-based educational game is Energyville, which is similar to SimCity. In this game, children and youth learn about various energy sources and complete the energy demand of the city, while keeping the city prosperous, secure, and clean. In this science example, we have a simulation game where the player gets an opportunity to dissect a frog using tools and techniques. The learner then identifies frog organs by selecting the parts of the frog that the label corresponds to. These are some educational game examples, but there are plenty more out there. During this course, you might decide to develop your own education game. For classroom unit plans, you might invite students to think of a game that they can create that will enhance their learning in another subject area, or for other learners. As you can see, some of these education examples have borrowed ideas from popular games and genres. Starting with popular games and genres might be one way to inspire you and your students in the types of games that you can create.